at State Policy Network, the service organization for America's free market, state-based think tanks, of which the Pelican Institute is an affiliate member. Prior to that, he served a variety of leadership and development roles at the National Office of Americans for Prosperity and Americans for Prosperity Foundation. He received a BA with honors in political economy and communication from Tulane University. Daniel and his wife Emily, a graduate of Tulane University School of Law, have 4 children and reside in New Orleans. And we are very happy to have him moderate our forum tonight.
Well, good evening. Now the fun part begins. Not that that wasn't fun. All right. So first, let me add my welcome. Again, this is the candidate forum of the Region 6 of the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women. I am grateful for the opportunity to get to ask these fine gentlemen some questions about public policy and the future of Louisiana. So let me take just a couple of minutes before we jump in and explain the rules, just so we're all on the same page here. So first of all, the gentlemen on stage have not seen tonight's questions. These were held in a safe somewhere after they were drawn up by a highly distinguished committee from Region 6 of the Louisiana Federation of Republican Women. And so they were handed to me tonight. So lest anyone worry that there was any funny business, these have been kept under a strict lock and key. So gentlemen, you will have as much fun as everyone else tonight. So the way this will work, each of these gentlemen will get 5 minutes to give an opening statement. Then we have a series of questions. This lovely Stars and Stripes hat in the middle of the stage has numbers in it. The candidates will each draw a number, basically in each round, and that randomizes who gets what question. Each of them will have about 1.5 minutes to provide an answer to the questions in that round. In the next round, there are 2 questions that both of them will get, and both of them will answer. Then finally, each will be given an opportunity for 3 minutes for a closing statement. So those are the rules of the game. I'll be moderating those, as we know. We did a coin flip. You may have seen it up here before we started, and Congressman Abraham was the victor in the coin flip. Now this will mean Congressman Abraham will have the first piece of this in each of those rounds, meaning Eddie Rispone will close in the closing statements tonight. Are we good?
Yes.
All right. We may have a microphone issue. Wait, all right, we're going to solve that. While they fix that, that gives me a chance to talk. As you know, and if you're in this room, certainly you believe that the future of Louisiana is at stake on what the decisions of the next couple of months mean. As you know, we have one of the worst economies in the country. We were the only state in the country over the last year to lose jobs, to have fewer jobs than we had the year before. The economy is not growing. People and jobs are fleeing our state to other places that are friendlier. A unique Louisiana story, of course, is we all know someone, a child, a grandchild, a friend or neighbor who's had to leave our state to find good work. And that's unacceptable. So the question is, will we embrace a broken status quo that has left us among the worst economies in the country, or will we chart a new vision for jobs and opportunity for our state? And those are the questions we will be exploring with the candidates tonight. So, let us begin. I think we've solved our technical difficulties. And again, by virtue of, oh, you have no microphone. Oh, you're good, okay. By virtue of a coin flip, Congressman Abraham, 5 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. Per our prayer, this time next year, we will have a Republican governor. So thank you for being here. Thank the Republican women, and you've heard me say this over and over before. Our wonderful president and our wonderful vice president credit the Republican women of America for getting them elected to office. So you are a force, and we appreciate you so much. For those of you that don't know me, I am Ralph Abraham. I grew up on a farm in northeast Louisiana where Diane and I still live today. I have been blessed to serve Louisiana as a soldier, as a farmer, as a pilot that still flies for the Coast Guard Auxiliary and the Civil Air Patrol, as a veterinarian, and as a medical doctor now that treats the poorest of the poor in the Louisiana Delta, some of the poorest in the nation. As you know, I have for the last 5 years been a conservative Christian voice in the Congress of our great United States of America. I am the only candidate that's been endorsed by the NRA. I am the only candidate that has always opposed Common Core. And I am the only candidate that supports the death penalty. And I am the only candidate that has worked alongside our great president to cut your taxes and my taxes, rebuild our military, and help our farmers out. Daniel said it spot on. John Dale Edwards is destroying our state. He's right. We are 50th out of 50th for 3 years in a row. We are the only state in the nation that has lost jobs, and we have people leaving the state every day. It's wrong. It's abominable. We know in Louisiana we are so much better than that. So what you're going to see is I will make jobs priority one. We're going to incentivize those businesses to come, stay, build, and hire. Taxes, as we all know, they're too high, they're too many, and they're too complicated. Tax reform, tax rate cut, another priority right off the bat. Our infrastructure, we're scared to drive out of this driveway because you could hit a pothole that swallows your car. And this is a governor that has raised your taxes and my taxes $7 billion and has not put $1 to infrastructure. We may get questioned, but you will learn very quickly that one of my passions is early childhood education. John Bell Edwards got a plan because it's an election year, where it's been the last 3 years. We make it priority one, day one. And on the public safety issue, I truly believe, and you're going to find, hopefully we'll get questions on this, if somebody does a violent crime, they will serve every second of their term under my administration. They're not going to get out early, I can assure you that. So I'm just tired of Louisiana losing under this governor. As your governor, Louisiana will win. Thank you very much.
All right. And you Rispone, your turn, 5 minutes for your opening.
Thank you. I appreciate all the ladies here. It'll make a difference. I've had a chance to speak to most of y'all, but we're going to hear some of the same things tonight. You know, we start out always that there's no reason why Louisiana is not leading the South when it comes to jobs and opportunities. And it boils down to leadership in the governor's seat. We need some leadership there. And I always say this, you know, look at what's happened when we have real leadership on a national level. Unemployment is the lowest it's been since 1969. The economy is booming. Our taxes are down. The stock market's up. And we're protecting our borders. And we're protecting our nation. And look what we have in the JB. What do we have, folks? Like he said earlier, we have the lowest GDP in the South. There's no reason why our GDP is lower in the South, lagging behind everyone else. We've had over 50,000 of our citizens leave the state in the last 3 years to find work somewhere else. And I guarantee you, everyone in this room has a child or a loved one or someone that's had to leave this state in the last 10 years, and particularly in the last 3 years. We need a future for them. What are we going to do about it? We have raised our taxes. It's actually $4 billion in the last 3 years. And if his taxes stay there for the rest of the time to 2024, it's going to be over almost $10 billion he's raised taxes. We have to do something else. Along with that, he's actually supported New Orleans as a sanctuary city. We need some different leadership. We've heard it over and over again. We are last. We are 50th. We do not have to accept that. And I use this analogy. If LSU was last in the SEC when it came to athletics and education, we would fire everyone, from the provost on down. Why do we keep doing that, folks? I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. I grew up not far from here in North Baton Rouge in a blue-collar family. I've had a job since I was 15, paid my way through college, got a degree in construction, went into the construction business, and about 30 years ago we started the company we have today. We are extremely blessed. That company today employs over 3,800 families, and last year we did over $364 million in revenues. We have thousands of families working for us. And on a personal note, Linda and I have been married for 13 years. We were both widowed in the early 2000s. We have 7 married children, and we have 24 perfect grandchildren. You heard me say that. We're extremely blessed. And that's why we're in this race, folks. It's for our children and grandchildren and your children and grandchildren's future. We have to do something different. And what I'll do is create jobs. There's no reason why we don't lead the South when it comes to jobs and opportunity. God has blessed this state with all kinds of natural resources. We need someone that understands job creation, and I'm that person. I have worked with job creators for the last 40 years in all sectors of the economy, creating thousands of jobs. I understand what it means to create jobs and how to work with them. Our company alone, like I said, has created thousands themselves, and we have filled those jobs with thousands of Louisiana citizens through education and training. And again, we don't need to raise taxes anymore. Career taxes spend politicians, that's what they live off of. Grow government, raise your taxes. We're going to have a constitutional convention, and we're going to change our tax laws and our revenues and make us competitive with other states. We're going to do it all in one time. We are going to protect our Christian conservative values. I am pro-life and I am pro-family. And when I say pro-family, our agencies are going to strengthen the family. They're going to work together to strengthen the family, not separate the families, not encourage the degradation of our families. It takes a governor that's going to sit there and say, we're not going to do that any longer. We're going to make changes in how we service our citizens when it comes to all of our social programs. And I'm going to defend the Second Amendment. We have our right to defend ourselves and our families. Not going to go away, folks. And we're going to eliminate sanctuary cities. We can do that. We can make that happen. Sanctuary cities encourage illegal immigration. They threaten our safety, and they cost us to spend our hard-earned dollars. What you are making possible for this state. We have to do something different. And that's what I want to tell you about. We have to do something different. And it's time to do something different. And the only way we're going to do that, and the best way to start that, is elect a different kind of governor. A governor that has business experience, an outsider, someone that has the skill sets to move our state forward, someone that not beholden to special interests, someone that has the wherewithal to go up against the money that the governor has with all his special interests. Someone that can hang in there with them and can change the way we do things. Thank you for listening. We get to the questions.
Okay, now the magic hat comes into play. So, Congressman Abraham, if you will draw a number. All right, tell us what you've got here. This is very exciting. Number 1, how about that? All right, here we go. So your question is on transportation and infrastructure. So Louisiana's roads, as we all know, and perhaps felt coming in here, rank bottom 10 nationally every year, costing Louisiana drivers roughly $1,200 per driver per year, equating to billions of dollars over time. Improving transportation infrastructure is critical to bringing jobs and opportunity back to Louisiana. For example, if workers can't get to their jobs on time and the product can't get out of the gate, businesses won't expand or locate here. Maintaining and fixing our roads has been neglected for more than 30 years. Our current governor seems to think the answer is the gas tax, which he has failed to pass in the last 2 legislative sessions. If re-elected, he tells us he plans to do it again. The citizens of Louisiana clearly said no to more taxes. A Republican-led effort to fix the worst of our infrastructure problems successfully resulted in the legislature allocating $700 million without raising taxes. with an estimated $12 billion backlog of unmet transportation needs, including 1,800 bridges, which are functionally deficient, and 1,900 which are functionally obsolete. So much more needs to be done. So, Congressman Abraham, how will you tackle our state's infrastructure challenges without raising taxes on overburdened Louisiana citizens?
It's a great question. We all know that if you ride down any road here in Baton Rouge, anywhere, they're terrible. You leave here, you go to Texas, they're great. You leave here, you go to Mississippi, they're better than Louisiana. Come on. So, how do we fix this without raising taxes? Because I'm not going to raise your taxes. We are going to make DOTD, for once, accountable. We all know that the TTF, the Transportation Trust Fund, is a piggy bank for this governor to reach in. It's our money. We pay taxes. That's what funds TTF. And spend it, evidently, not on roads and bridges. It needs to come before the legislature. They need to hold DOT accountable and do their job, which most of them are very good at watching the purse, watching our money. If we don't do that, then we will fail from day one. We are not using money efficiently. We are not using money wisely. I've looked at the budget. Whew, there is lots and lots of waste, fraud, and abuse. So we're going to hold TTF accountable. We're going to put somebody in charge, actually, of DOTD that knows how to build a road, and knows how to maintain a road, and knows how to build a bridge, and knows how to maintain a bridge. What a novel concept. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Congressman Eddie, you've got the next magic hat. Number 5, here we go. All right. Your question is on Medicaid expansion. 2 years ago, as most of you know, Governor John Bel Edwards expanded Medicaid with a stroke of his pen to more than 450,000 able-bodied adults in Louisiana, as permitted under Obamacare. Enrollment in Medicaid expansion has far exceeded the administration's initial projections and subsequent projections, for that matter. In addition, more than 5,000 people from the traditional Medicaid population, arguably those most in need in our society, were stuck on a waiting list and have died waiting on a medical procedure since expansion was put into place. Given these challenges, Eddie, what steps would you take to right-size and reform Louisiana's Medicaid programs?
Thank you. I would say this, Medicaid problem is, what we have is unsustainable. It's going to go broke. So we have to do something. We can't do that. We have to have a safety net for the people who need it the most. And that's what we're going to have to do. And we're going to have to prioritize things how we do it. And what will I do? First of all, we'd freeze who's on it. And then we would go in there and get rid of the fraud, the abuse, and all the waste. And then we'd have to go there and make sure we prioritize the resources and the care for the individuals that need it the most. That's how we have to do it. And without going too further, obviously we need to get someone there that's a talented person, not a political crony, over our Medicaid program. And that's what we have to do, folks.
Thank you very much. All right, next question. Boy, the suspense is fun, isn't it?
Well, it could be a 6 or it could be a 9.
Oh, you're good. They only go to 6. They go to 8, but you're good anyway. All right. Education is our topic. Excellent. Louisiana's education system has made dramatic gains over the last decade, and yet, according to the U.S. News and World Report, Louisiana ranks 48th in the nation in education and 50th in opportunity. Louisiana cannot have a bright future without a workforce equipped with the skills and training to compete in a 21st century economy. It is an economic and moral imperative to ensure that every child has access to high-quality education that meets their needs, regardless of socioeconomic circumstances. So, Congressman Abraham, what is your plan to bring Louisiana's school system into the 21st century and ensure that every child has access to an education that fits their needs?
Well, why don't we start with letting teachers teach and parents parent? So, simple concept. We do have a failing school system now. We have public schools that are stars. Some people love their public schools, and that's great. But there are many that are not so great, and they're failing. And to your point, Daniel, we are 49th out of 50. Just crazy. What about just letting, again, that money, because we pay about the average per pupil per nation, but we're not getting the return that we need. And the reason we're not is because we're teaching things like Common Core, because the parents and the teachers, I can't figure it out. I've got a degree, but it's that complicated. Our money is not being spent wisely, it's not being spent prudently, and we have got to get leadership in the governor's office that will put education where it should be, here, and not at the bottom of the barrel. We know with our Constitution right now, with all the dedications, the only thing that we can almost cut is healthcare and education. Probably the two most important things for us and for us as parents and grandparents and for health. And we have found a way in this state that that's the only way we can cut. It's crazy. So we prioritize it. Early childhood education, I go back to that. We need dual enrollment for our high school students. And the list goes on and on. And if we don't do that, and if we continue down the same path, then we're going to continue to be at the bottom of the barrel. I know our teachers. We have several in our family. They are the best in the world. Our students are as smart as anybody in the nation. I talk to them all the time as patients and as their congressmen. They want to do better, and we're going to do better. Thank you.
Education is near and dear to my heart with 4 kids, and after helping my 6th grader last night with her long division homework, I think I need to go back to school. Eddie's got number 7. All right, here we go. Ooh, this is good. Eddie, your question is on regulation and occupational licensure. So a hallmark of American freedom is the right to pursue one's chosen profession and provide for oneself and one's family. An occupational license is nothing more than a government permission slip to work in a chosen field and serves as a barrier to opportunity and upward mobility. A recent study by the Archbridge Institute shows a direct correlation between burdensome licensure laws and systematic poverty. According to the Institute for Justice, Louisiana has some of the most oppressive and unusual licensure requirements in the country. In fact, we are the only state to require you to have a license should you wish to arrange flowers as a florist. Black market roses are coming to you. In addition to occupational licensing, unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats on state regulatory boards impose onerous and often irrational red tape requirements across various activities in the state. The freedom to earn a living in Louisiana receives the least amount of protection under law. Yet another reason we remain 50th in opportunity. So Eddie, how will you reduce excessive barriers to opportunity and ensure that economic possibilities are not just a promise, but a reality?
Well, to start with, occupational license there should be a criteria that is for public safety only, primary. You know, you said it earlier. It should not be something to restrict competition. It should not be something to raise taxes and revenues. That's what part of this is all about. Your license fees and eliminating competition. And just go back to that. I'm worried about my florist because something might happen to my house, or my car, or my child. It doesn't have anything to do with safety, folks. It has to do with limited competition and raising money. So that's how you have to start it. And go through there and eliminate all that and set it in motion and say, okay, we're going to sunset all of these regulations and these licenses, and they're going to have to prove that it's public safety. We've had the same thing in construction. They try to put all these license requirements on craft persons when the company is the one that's liable. So I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to restrict competition and get tax dollars or fees into the treasury. And we're going to stop that, and we're going to phase them all out. Thank you.
Having sent my mother-in-law in Tennessee flowers recently, where they have unlicensed florists, imagine the horror. She did not suffer ill consequences because of that. Very good. Next question. All right, number 8, here we go. Number 8 is on tax reform. Just an easy topic here. Even as our national economy is booming, as we've discussed, Louisiana is the only state to lose jobs, and our economy is one of the worst in the country. Our antiquated and complex tax system is one of the main causes. Whether it's our non-competitive corporate tax rate, high marginal taxes, centralized sales tax collection, 430 pages in our tax code of tax preferences, carve-outs, and credits, or our unhealthy, constitutionally protected tax dedications that tie our state taxes to federal taxes. We are in dire need of tax reform in Louisiana. Our state deserves a 21st century tax code that encourages growth and taxes individuals and businesses predictably and fairly. Tax reform can spark an economic revolution in Louisiana. So, as governor, how would you reform our archaic tax code and make Louisiana a viable competitor?
Day one, we're going to call a special session and get our wonderful legislatures that are fiscally conservative and want to lower your taxes and my taxes, and we're going to address tax reform, infrastructure, and budget. Those are the 3 big elephants in the room, literally, that have to be addressed. You said it, Daniel. We've got a corporate income tax. It's one of the highest in the South. We've got a franchise tax that needs to go away because it keeps businesses out. We've got an inventory tax for oil and gas and our car dealerships that are stifling. That needs to be phased out. We've got the highest sales tax in the nation. I get beat up on that because we're supposed to be second highest to Tennessee. But guess what? Tennessee doesn't have any state income tax. So we're out in orbit with taxes. They are so high, we cannot get a hold to them. So we're going to cut taxes. Again, I go back to looking at the budget and I just shake my head in despair, and then I get angry at the waste, the fraud, the abuse that has happened under this administration. It's wrong, it's immoral, it's unethical, and I'm going to stop it.
Eddie, you've got the next number. Number 2, all right, legal reform. Louisiana
He's been getting all the good ones. Infrastructure, education, tax reform. What I get, florist?
I think there may be some
Regulations.
Sink your teeth into the
You said, did you see all these questions? I think Doc did.
Well, Louisiana lawsuit abuse is among the worst in the nation. According to Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch, in fact, families and businesses around the state pay nearly $7 billion in annual expenses related to litigation, which translates, if you're doing that math at home, to about $4,000 per household per year. As a direct result of this abuse, Louisiana has the second highest full coverage car insurance rates in the country, behind Michigan, which, by the way, passed sweeping lawsuit abuse reforms earlier this year. While here in Louisiana, legal reform bills struggle to make it out of an attorney-packed legislative committee. Hear, hear. Excessive litigation, civil litigation rather, costs Louisiana more than 15,000 jobs every year, making it one of the root causes of jobs and revenue loss for the state. And yet another reason, again, we remain 50th in opportunity. So Eddie, do you have a plan to remove this obstacle to prosperity and implement much-needed legal reform in Louisiana?
It's going to be a priority, folks. From the first day I'm signing up, I'm sworn in, we're going to have executive orders to fix some things. And we're going to go after legal reform right away. Lawsuit abuse is killing thousands of jobs when it comes to coastal lawsuits, when it comes to legacy lawsuits. Thousands of jobs have left Louisiana because of that, and we've lost millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenues because we're not getting the oil and gas out of the ground. We're going to fix that. We're going to put it back in the Department of Natural Resources where it belongs and take it away from the trial lawyers' contingency fees. We don't need them running our agencies. We're going to do that. And then on top of that, Kirk Talbot had a bill to help us in our car insurance. It got killed in the Judiciary Committee. They made a mistake. Because when I'm governor with this new legislature, more conservative House, a more conservative Senate, we're going to go back and we're going to add everything we can to it to lower our insurance. They made a mistake by killing it, folks. You can count on that. And that's how we're going to start. That's just the beginning of it. And we have some things to do with the criminal justice reform. We have some laws to work on that. We have to do some things there as well and do some tweaking. But that's what we're going to do with the legal reform. Thank you.
So everybody loves them some plaintiff's attorneys. You're next. Married to an attorney, I have to be careful. It's the good kind. Number 3, here we go. All right, sanctuary cities. Mayors across our nation, including New Orleans, my hometown, have declared that they will not follow federal immigration law and have become so-called sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants. What is your position on mayor-declared sanctuary cities, and do you have an action plan in regard to that?
Absolutely. Sanctuary cities, which, by the way, New Orleans is one. They'll say they're not, but they are. That stops day one, hour one on my watch. Sanctuary cities are not going to be tolerated. In the United States Congress, I have voted every time with the president to try and help him and our wonderful ICE agents, our wonderful Border Patrol agents to do their job. I've been to the border. I know what's down there. I know the drugs that come across. I know those poor children that come across and that are being exploited and abused. And I've seen horrific things that we cannot even say in this forum. So, yes, we will eliminate any concept, any hint, any whisper of ever having a sanctuary city in Louisiana under my watch. We will let our good men and women in uniform, our Border Patrol agents, our ICE agents, the heroes that protect us, that let us sleep safely and soundly at night, do their job and get these illegals out of this country.
And the parade rolls on. Here we go. Number 4. All right, Eddie, you've got red flag laws. So, recent active shooter events in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio have refocused attention on gun ownership and gun safety. With 20,000 nationwide laws and several procedures currently in place, conversations about red flag laws are concerning. Red flag laws deprive citizens of due process and violate the Second and Fourth Amendments. So what is your position on red flag laws, and how will you ensure that Louisiana's Second Amendment rights are protected?
Well, first of all, we have Second Amendment rights here in Louisiana that says no local political subdivision can change the law or the state of the Second Amendment. And I'm going to stick with that. And we're not going to let them make changes, whether New Orleans or wherever wants to do it. Procedures that happens, and we're not going to let it change, okay? The other thing I want to mention about immigration, about this, sanctuary cities. We also are going to do just like that. We're going to pass a law that says if you do not follow the immigration laws, and if you don't support ICE, you're not going to get state funding. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas has that law. And we'll make a law that says that they won't get the funding. We'll stop that from a legal standpoint as well. The same is true with the
All right, have we gotten through all the numbers in the hat? Okay, so we're down to round 3. All right, gentlemen, so this time you will both get to answer the same question. So I will read it and some setup, and then we'll stick with our coin flip. Congressman Abraham and then Eddie. All right, so the first question is on budget reform. During Governor Edwards' term, our state budget has skyrocketed to levels with billions of dollars in increases in government spending. All the while, talk of closing LSU football, closing nursing homes, and budget crises. Now, this growth in government has been funded largely by so-called temporary tax measures passed under the guise of those budget crises. Meanwhile, our population has declined as hardworking taxpayers, we've already discussed, leave to pursue opportunities elsewhere. The last two administrations have depleted the rainy day fund while governing crisis to crisis, and only temporary measures have been put in place to try to, quote, balance the budget. This uncertainty has led to further instability in our economy, dissuading businesses from investing and creating jobs in Louisiana. So, gentlemen, as governor, how will you fundamentally reform Louisiana's budgeting process? And the question committee makes a specific note to please be specific.
This governor has increased your and my budget from $27 billion to $34 billion in 3.5 short years. What do we got to see for it? Very little. We're still dead last. Remember that, 50th out of 50th. And that's got to stop also. What we have got to do is prioritize our money, use it efficiently. And the reason we have a $300 million surplus, maybe, is because this governor has raised our taxes $7 billion with 7 special sessions. And you're right, Daniel. He threatened to kick, Grandma out of the nursing home. He threatened to close LSU football. How foolish. I mean, it's not going to happen, and he knew it. But he used that as a threat, and it's unfortunate that he even chose that particular tactic to do that. What a novel idea. Why do we always have to spend every cent that we have? We can't give that $300 million back because constitutionally you just can't do that. I'd like to. It's your money. But why don't we save it? I teach my daughters and my son, Diane and I have hopefully done a good job, that you don't have to spend every penny that comes into your house. Because right now, if we have a crisis, guess what's going to happen? He's going to raise your money. Going back to the Medicaid expansion problem, next year our match, federal match goes down, state match goes up. That's another $200+ million for the expansion. What's John Bell going to do? The only thing he knows to do. He's going to raise your taxes again. This is why we've got to get this guy out of the 4th floor. To my point, we will call a special session day 1, and the things that we will address are budget reform, taxes, and infrastructure. You give me a supermajority in the legislature, which I think we're going to get, you let me flip 2 or 3 seats in the Senate, we go to town. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's say this. I'm not going to have to fire anyone, because when I'm elected governor, they're going to be quitting. All these agencies. So, that's number one. Number one, we're going to have someone in every agency that's talented, that wants to work, not a political crony. And so we're going to know we're going to have some leadership in these agencies that understand how to build a budget. A business person knows how to do that. Recruit talented people and make them accountable. That's the first thing we're going to do. Second thing is, we're going to go with zero-based budgeting. We're going to know where we spend it, just like you do every day. We're going to force them to look at where they spend their money. Third thing, we passed the law in 2018 for the Louisiana checkbook. How ironic. It's supposed to say everything that we're spending in the state agencies. Everything. We had a company came in for $350,000. In 3 months, they could have installed it. What does Darden do? He decides that we want to do it ourselves. He asked for $26 million and said it's going to take 5 years. Guess which agency is going to be the last one to do it in 2 more years? Department of Health, the largest agency, spending $14 billion. That's not going to happen. We're going to get that. We're going to know where the money is being spent so we can manage. That's what you do in business. And then the last thing, we're going to have a constitutional convention. And we're going to change taxes and revenues. We're going to change how things are shaped in here. We're going to have a real constitution, not 430-something pages of legal stuff, of legislation. And so the legislators, like Tony, will be able to look at this and say, have some choice to set some priorities. We don't need all that money in this agency. We need to move it over here where the demands are, where the priorities are. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a constitutional convention to do that. That'll be the 4th thing to do. Thank you for listening.
both will answer, and then we will move to our final round, which is closing statements. So one more question for me, and this is on a constitutional convention. So, Louisiana, as most of you may know, is tied for the most constitutions of any state in our history, and we have one of the longest and most complicated in the country. It has been amended nearly 200 times since its ratification in 1974. For example, the current Constitution, get this, uses 13,000 words just on how to spend your tax dollars. Just as a comparison, the entirety of the U.S. Constitution, which sets up the entire American experiment, was done in just around 7,500 words. This means that current tax dollars are locked up into priorities from decades earlier. Imagine your crazy uncle from 40 years ago has set your spending priorities. What might that do to your household budget? And so elected officials only have the ability to control about 11% of our tax dollars to reflect current priorities. Our Louisiana Constitution lays out taxes, spending, education, and local government, but it's become a nightmare document that gives the legislature almost no control to represent us in Baton Rouge. Opponents to a convention say these problems can be fixed legislatively. So, do you support a convention, convening a constitutional convention? And if so, what areas of the Constitution, in your opinion, should be the focus of reform?
We've got over 300 dedications in the current Constitution, and that's why we can only cut healthcare and education when we incur some type of budget crisis that this particular governor creates by the way he spends our money. So that's got to change. Look, I am a pragmatist, and what we need to do, we do it to fix this state. Now, we have to make sure that if we open that Constitution, it has to be limited. Right now, it can't be. But the legislature can pass a limited amendment that says it can be limited. Because once you open that, you have to be very careful. Because there are things in there that are protected, such as protecting the unborn, the right to bear arms, those things that are near and dear to us as good people, those are good things that we have in our Constitution. But of all the things that we must fix, we've got to get our state back in order. And if that requires a limited constitutional convention, absolutely. Article 7, taxes and revenue, number 1. But like I said, we may, with a good supermajority of the legislature, we can make it do that right out of the box. And the thing that we have to be careful of is, once we open it, we've got to make sure that the delegates and your governor understand the conservative values of Louisianians. Can't buy our way there. We've got to do it with democracy. We've got to do it with vision, and we've got to do it with transparency to you, the general public. So, thank you.
Thank you. I would not be running if we weren't going to have a constitutional convention to change the structure that we have here. We've been dancing around this for 30 years. We keep trying to fix this and fix that, and it won't happen, folks. We have to do something totally different. We're going to have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here with me as governor. We're going to have a conservative House and a conservative Senate. We're going to pass a bill that has a constitutional convention, and we're going to address it. Our Constitution is not a constitution. It should be structured just like the one we have for the United States. What we have is a bunch of legislation in there. You heard it earlier, 200 amendments. That's just legislation. So we have to restructure. And we have to go and make sure that we do some things when we get there. And we have to be very conscious of how we set it up. We have to make sure we go out and recruit good delegates. We have to make sure that we elect good delegates. And then we have to make sure we have the resources to support them, like with Pelican Institute, to come in and tell them the things that we need to do. And have them make those decisions on how we move our state forward. And get a real constitutional that we can work with. That's what we have to do. And then we have to educate the public. Why? We have to have those resources. I'm the only person that can do that. I'm the only one that go out and get those resources to do those things. And work with the legislature to get that done. And we have to do some things, and obviously all of it has to be looked at, but taxes and revenues has to be looked at, local government has to be looked at, the education has to be looked at. We have, in local government, All those things have to be looked at. State employees have to be looked at. We have unfunded liability, almost $19 billion. We have to fix it once and for all, start over, get a real constitution, and go forward. Thank you.
Thank you both. First, before we go into closing statements, I would ask, it takes a lot, as many of you in the audience who have run for something, who are currently elected, to put yourself and your family on the line to run for office. So let's give both of these gentlemen a big round. Thank you both for your service. We're deeply grateful, and for being willing to come forward and talk about the issues that are going to face our state. This is how we turn it around, by engaging people on these issues, by bringing people together and casting a vision for what we can do. So thank you very much. All right, we've come to the last round of our program. Thank you for your engagement in this. So again, by the coin flip, we're going to start with Congressman Abraham, and then Eddie, you have 4 minutes for a closing statement. And thank you very much.
Take me about 40 seconds. Thank you again for putting this on for the Republican women. This has been fantastic, and it allows those that are watching by camera and those that are here to understand how desperate we are in this state right now. Going back to the beginning, John Bel Edwards is destroying our state. And if he gets another 4 years, you think what you've seen so far is bad? No. With him not having to re-elect, it's going to be Katie bar the door. We cannot let him and his trial attorney cronies continue to run this state. So it's going to stop. Now, we must win this election. I will be the one that can beat him. As your governor, we will lead this state to where we know it can be. We can't imagine where we need to be, where jobs are plentiful, schools are good, and our children are safe when they go outside to play. We can't do it divided. We must be united. So I ask for your support, I ask for your prayers, and I ask for your votes. God bless Louisiana, and God bless America.
But I think all of us in agreement that we cannot allow John Bel Edwards to be our governor again, correct? Again. Now, we have to replace him. And I'm gonna put it on you this way. We have, in our president, we have someone that's an outsider, someone that's a serious business person, someone that had the wherewithal to go against all the special interests and continues to do so, someone that has the backbone to go against the status quo and get some things done. I would not be running if we had that person in this race, and I'm that person to do that. We cannot continue to do the same thing over and over again and be last. We cannot do it. We have to do something different. And it starts by electing a different type of governor. Someone that has the business skills. Someone that's not beholden to special interests. Someone that has created thousands of jobs and worked with every sector of the economy for 40 years. Someone that is educated and trained thousands of people, understands what it takes to do that. Someone that's been in business for a long time, understands how all this fits together. That's what we need, folks. I would not be doing this otherwise. We have to have structural changes here. If we blow this, we're in trouble. We're going to have a more conservative House, a more conservative Senate, and me as governor, we're going to make some changes, and we're going to change the Constitution and make us competitive with the rest of the country. These are the things we have to do. Some very heavy lifting, and we're going to have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And not to mention redistricting. We got to do all that again. And if we miss that boat, that's 20 years. So I ask you for your support, I ask you for your vote, and I ask you for your prayers. Let's make a difference. Thank you for listening.
All right. That concludes let me just say again, thank you to the District 6